Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for the final wrap up of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 Season 3. The completion of the series. Now I can really go into full spoilers of overall what went down. I've been keeping certain things close to the chest. Now we finally get to meet Leo Akiba, who is the kind of sort of main baddie, but kind of not, because we meet the big baddie here. But we get to, this is kind of the one thing I gotta admit to the show, where I can't recall something like this happened in an anime before, at least not off the top of my head, where the Leo Akiba, who's been like the overarching threat, at least sub threat throughout the 3 seasons, and we learned that his goal was to merge all 4 dimensions together: standard, synchro, fusion, and Xyz dimensions, and merge them all together. Because he is from what I've and many people who are Yu-Gi-Oh fans are led to believe, because up until Arc 5, since Duel Monsters, up until Zexal, we believe, okay, we've been following like this trajectory of a singular timeline, where we going through all the future and different generation of Yu-Gi-Oh protagonists and their supporting characters and new world ending threats. And that's where I'm led to, I can't really speak on anybody else, but I think a lot of people might agree with me that Leo Akiba is coming from that particular timeline, where things has progressed even further into the future. And he is a scientist who perfected, because the arc projection, the new holographic projection that we're so accustomed to with action duels and everything like that, they weren't created in the standard dimension in the first place. They think we were led to believe that he was the creator of this invention to make Duel Monsters a little bit more lifelike. However, he technically didn't invent it. It was already invented in the original timeline. What he did was perfected it to make the monsters more lifelike. It was already a thing. It just was low res. So once he perfected that system, Duel Monsters tournaments has become even a bigger spectacle. And there was this duelist named Zark, who was young up and coming duelist who has been killing it in the game, where he was wowing the crowd. He was winning all these matches and everything like that, and he become pretty much like Jack Atlas in a way, where he's just become this big pro duelist. The problem, things turned for the worse, because the hologram was a little bit more lifelike. At one match, one of Zark's monsters, one of his dragons, has not only defeated another opponent's monster, but it sent it crashing into the duelist himself. which cause a real life injury because these monsters are more lifelike. That means you got a huge body colliding into you from an existential force. But the crowd, was so hyped, they craving like, oh wow. It's kind of like, like a gladiatorial arena where, back in ancient Rome, where it's like, they want to see more, essentially more bloodshed. They love, like, it's just, it's kind of like even today with UFC fights, when not to the same extent where it was like, want to kill the opponent, but it's just like the thrill of it, really riled up the crowd when they want to see, like, more action and everything like that, and which got Zark, I guess, mentally, I'm not sure, because I don't do those like psychology, anime psychology videos anymore, because it's like, too much on my plate as it is. But it got to be something like, where it's kind of like maybe like, Homelander from The Boys, where his need to maybe be liked supersedes anything else, and he kind of lose. Yeah, I think that's a good, parallel here. Zark, in a way, is kind of like Homelander, where it's just like, he wants to be liked. He lost pretty much. He gotten so big, so powerful, in a way, where, like, he perfected all these different types of summoning methods, and fusion, synchro, Xyz. So he gotten so good that there was no challenge to him, and he just want to up the ante and up the ante and up the ante, because that's what the people crave, and they pretty much got their wish. Now, at a certain point, because I guess this is a little iffy. This is anime BS in a way, but it's like he became more, he's able to commune with his dragons, because the 4 different dragons from the different dimensions all originated from him. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Clearwing Synchro Dragon, Dark Rebellion Dragon, and the standard Odd Eyes, Odd Eyes Dragon. He was the original master, and that's how he was like so devastating to deal with. He perfected all these summonings, and with their unique effects, you'd be hard pressed to deal with something like that. Nobody's will be able to like counter all that, especially if you summon all 4 onto the field at the same time. It's like trying to counteract every little thing. Imagine, it's like he's able to counter anything you might come up with, and it's like making him so much of a devastating player. So he eventually merged with all of his dragons, and he became like this ultimate dragon. He's kind of like, if you remember, Yame Merrick merging with the winged dragon of Ra. Very one-to-one. It's almost like it's like clearly they was copying that situation. And now, he's running rampant and comes like a freaking kaiju. The city tried to fight back, but nobody can do anything about it. So Leo came up with the idea of creating these 4 cards based off the elements of the world, like, water, earth, fire, not fire, but water, earth, space or sky, I forget all 4 of those things, but or these animals or something like that. The animals. So he used pretty much nature to build these 4 cards to separate Zark from his dragons, but it will come at a detriment to the user. And so he's willing to sacrifice himself because he sees himself as the one responsible for causing. He was instrumental in creating this thing that led a domino effect to making this monster. But his daughter, named Ray, stole those cards to use it herself because, you know, she figured, like, you know, the world still needs him as a great scientist as he is. But he refused to sacrifice his daughter, but it was too late. She used those cards, separating, not only separating the dragons, but she separated herself and the world into 4 separate dimensions altogether. And Leo woke up. Somehow he's like able to, like, you know, I guess maybe he was close enough to not be affected. So he woke up in the standard dimension. That's where he met and befriended Yuya's father. I forgot his doggone name, but and that's how he became like the most famous dual tainer in the first place. But we learned that Ray became the 4 girls that we know: Zuzu, Selena, Lulu, and Rin. And Zark was also separated into the main characters that we've been following: Yuya, Yuri, Yugo, and Yuto. And I thought, like, okay, that is a very cool twist where the bad guy, well, here's the thing. Well, first and foremost, I think it's a cool twist where, like, the bad guy isn't really the bad guy as we're led to believe, and the good guy is still necessarily a good guy, but he was the original threat to this, you know, to the world, unbeknownst to many people except for the main villain. I just feel like, okay, he's been doing stuff, and the things he's been leading up to this point of the story has all been like very evil-ish. It's like, it's, you know, it's kind of like, you know, lame excuse like, oh, it's for the greater good kind of situation. But you hiring like a mad scientist pretty much who's creating these, like, you know, parasites to mind control people. I was like, okay. And then you essentially, which I don't even know how you recruit people, and he created Dual Academy in the fusion dimension, and I'm not sure if that was like an original Dual Academy from the, I'm pretty sure that it had to be, that he pretty much recreated in his own image, a perverse version of the original Dual Academy that we know. But you somehow convince a whole populace of students into, not everybody, but at least a majority of them, reveling in the fact that, because they believe, like, we're peacekeepers, we're merging everything together to create one unified, peaceful world. And it's like, yeah, but you're turning people into cards, and only a few of you actually, you know, thought it was kind of like really effed up and horrifying. And it's like he needed, you know, people's essence in these cards so he can dump it into this arc reactor to power up the machine that will force the 4 universes together back into one singular one. Of course, Leo, Yuya's father, like, a lot of people are eventually, you know, hearing this, catching on to this. And I like the moment where Yuya's dad, you know, thinking back on when him and Zuzu's dad were young dual-tainers, and they was raising their, baby children, and they having a tough time recalling the legit moment, the birth of their kids, and knowing like, oh my god, maybe it's something to what Leo is talking about. Because how could any parent forget them unless they were not there in the first place? How could they not remember the first moment that they hear their own children's cries when they was brought into the world? How can you not remember that? It's something you cannot forget unless you've been in some kind of accident or has some mental defect. That's physically impossible. And then eventually, we see a moment where Yuri and Yugo have a duel, and Yugo lost and was merged into Yuri. I just kind of wish, like Yuta with Yuya, that the essence of Yugo was whispering in this in Yuri's head or something like that. But the more that these dragons are called out and closer these guys are together, the more Zark starts to take control. And it's like reunite, and it feels so good. Reunite. I mean, silly, but I'm just like, I can't help but think about the song. Reunite, and it feels so good. Reunite. But it's just like they became overwhelmed with the essence of his original self, Zark. And so it's like, I don't know why it was needed to mind control the 4 girls. You could have just have them incapacitate. Because here's the thing, why is like these, all these kids are so down? I guess, yes, you can look at something like, war torn places like, Somalia or something like that, where like a young kid, getting a weapon in his hands, and they'll feel like, powerful, and they want to do, they can like do whatever. So you can make that comparison and how influential young kids can be. But I'm surprised there's only like, what, 10% of them at the most have feeling like, okay, this is kind of messed up, and everybody's just super on board with turning people into cards to fuel this thing. The way I see it, like, man, that could have been I don't think like Leo could have been so more sympathetic if all the stuff that he did were like recruiting sympathetic people, and not just like people like, this, yelling general who was controlling this wild man in this room named BB, who eventually turned Crow and Moonshadow into cards and everything like that. It's like you're recruiting a guy who's constantly yelling, berating, and abusing, this wild child here, and you're recruiting this mad scientist. It's like, I don't know, you could have recruited a lot of people who would have been more on your side and sympathetic and believe in your cause, and not just outright evil, because they are outright evil. And I personally, and people who I talk to about this wouldn't necessarily agree. It's like Leo's probably in the right more so than most of the characters will agree with, because all these 4 separate dimensions should not even exist. There's birth out of essentially an accident. Now, of course, you can make the claim with the Big Bang, but it's just like, no, this is like a legit catastrophe that had to be used in order to stop this threat. Now Leo is just like, okay, I gotta get my daughter back because I lost her in this whole catastrophe. So in order to get it back, I gotta remerge these universes, but I also got to neutralize, or at least keep these four boys from merging together. But then again, it's like, okay, you merging everything together would cause these guys to eventually meet up. You essentially create like a domino effect with your war-torn forces. I mean, like your war-happy forces destroying most of the Xyz dimension in order to turn a bunch of people into cars, which cause Yuto and Shay and, you know, Kite. And it was Kite, like, I love to see Kite again. He's an incredible character. And causing them to like go to these other dimensions, same way with like Yugo. It's like, you know, go to these other dimensions in order to find you know, whereas like, you know, Ren or Lulu or whatever like that, and forcing these people, you know, together, where to the point where you did not want to. And it's like the way I would have gone about it is like, if I was Leo, I would have, you know, I don't know, this is the mindset, maybe because he didn't think people would believe him or something, but I know he needed like the energy required, and not many people be super on board with that. But, you know, I could make the argument, it's like, you know, people fighting back and like, yeah, sure, you guys had a life, like people in the, you know, Xyz dimension had a life, but Leo could make the argument, I do not feel bad for all those people because they technically should not even exist. So I don't see them as people. And that's where you can easily make the character development with Leo, where he's like, doesn't have sympathy for what atrocities he will commit, because he's going to reemerge everything, and all things that he knew will be back, and all these people who came about, even though in your point of view, you had lives and everything like that, but it was a fallacy, you know. And I would have gone about it where it's like, okay, fine, certain people who will be more in your cause and sympathetic, so that way we can start you know, something like the police in the single dimension, the you know, sector security, something like that, where it's like we're doing a job and they're a little more sympathetic, they ain't wavering to their thing, but to the mission, but you know, they do feel some level of sympathy, something like that. You can make that a thing where you said like these power hungry, or not power hungry, but these like, you know, crazy, you know, these kids are happy to turn people into, you know, cars. Like, oh man, I love it when they run. Yeah, it's like you know, that makes it all the more sweeter. Yeah, it's like there's like mustache twirling, and it's like, I don't know. You can, if you're gonna implement some kind of mind control, you can do so with at least most of the forces, or just have somebody, you know, at least like a decent amount of people who are more agreeable to what you believe in, something like that, where it's like you don't feel bad about what you're doing because they technically should not exist. We all gonna be reemerging, and if they meant to exist, they will exist. If not, you don't feel bad, because you know, it's like making up an imaginary person and feel bad that imaginary person just disappeared. You're not losing anything. They may have lived out a quote unquote life, but really, it's like, you know, you wouldn't even, like, you didn't know Crow exists until you went into that world. There could be like a Shelly in the single dimension that's living in a coffee shop. You don't know her. Like, I could have just made her up. She could be real. I could have just made her up. You don't know. So if she like snapped out of existence tomorrow, would you be losing anything? would you really be shedding a tear? That's how I'm viewing the entire situation of what I'm doing. And of course, in the end, the each of the universes are together but not merged. They're like, you know, there's like a gateway that interconnects them all together. So in a way, Leo got what he wanted, but it's just like, I don't know. I don't agree with that. It's like, what happened to the characters that we all knew from, you know, Zexal on back, like Yuma, Yugi, Joey Wheeler, Kaiba, it's like Pegasus, Yusei, you know, it's like all these people that we know, Jaden. It's like, what's going on with them? It's like they just cease to exist because they never been brought up. They never make a return or come in at the tail end to help out or anything like that. Or did it even exist? You mess with the timeline, or at least breaking universes together. It's like, does that stop them from existing? Because it has to be a thing, because neither Jack nor Crow bring up about Yusei or Akiza or anything going on with like what they had to deal with Zone. There's no Blackwing Dragon, so clearly there's no 5 signers or anything like that. There's no Officer Trudge, or there's no mention of Rex Goodwin. You had an entirely different sector security and 5 old people who's like the heads of the city. So clearly all that we knew has gone up in flames. It's like same thing with like Yuma. It's like, where's like Yuma and Shark and like anything about Astral? It's like all that is just gone. I mean, it's like it's like, okay, I would have preferred them to, like, this might sound crappy, but let the bad guy win, where at least in a way where everything is reemerged. The main, you know, the main character with Yuya and Yuto and Yuri and Yugo all merged back to Zark, and he's like a new man with the memories of all 4 guys, along with Ray coming back together with the memories of all 4 girls. You know, all that has been resolved, but certain characters like, you know, Shay, I don't know, like certain characters that were created for this particular you know, Yu-Gi-Oh generation, you know, that we come to know, like Yuya's, you know, parents and everything like that, and Zuzu's dad, you know, they can not exist or exist, but with different memories and live entirely different lives. Where it's like, you know, Mr. Boyle is not the father of Ray, because Zuzu technically, you know, she exists but not exists at the same time. Like everybody living like a different life where it would have carried out maybe originally, but well, everything's like a fresh start. They remember what had transpired, at least so far as like the main people, and they remember, and they starting afresh and gonna try to do better, and they can mourn the people that they once knew, or the people that we know still exist, but now they living brand new lives with zero pain of the memories of what had transpired. All that stuff is like gone. That's how I would have played it out, because these 4 dimensions shouldn't probably had existed, and I believe the bad guy should have, you know, accomplished his goals and merged everything back into one, because I want all the history that we've been following along. If you've been going, you know, who's people who are Yu-Gi-Oh fans, we will prefer to at least everything get back on track, so everything that's been following along has not just gone up in smoke. Um. Uh. Uh. So it was thanks to. Oh man. Well, I want to start off with this. Of course, we get an awesome duel between like Yuya's father, so we actually can see him actually duel. It's really cool. And he dueled against Yuri. Of course, he loses against Yuri because Yuri's just like a devastating duelist. I mean, and he's sadistic. And he's the fun type of villain that I really like watching him, because like, oh my, I do have a name, you know, it's Yuri. And he's just like that like proper British fop, but he's just like charmingly, you know, just sadistic in a way that you just like. In a way, he kind of reminds me in a way of Yami Bakura in a way, except you know Yuri's actually like a better duelist. Uh, uh, but once all like you know all the Yugo or the Yuya boys all merged together back into Zark. Then the last like 5 or 6, well, you know, aside from a couple of episodes, it seems like flashbacks. It like a most useless episodes I've ever seen in my life. But on the tail end of the season, we actually when we reached to like the penultimate of the story, where now Zark is fully revived. Now we gotta keep him from causing havoc from all 4 dimensions now, and the whole thing about the pendulum summoning, thinking it's like a brand new system that Yuya came up with. Technically, it was Zark. He was still like slumbering underneath in a way, and that moment where those the pendulum card just mysteriously appeared in Yuya's deck in like the first episode. He was the one that kind of forced that to happen. Don't know how he made that happen, but it was a way for him to worm his way out. And now, because he knew he was coming back, and he wanted to make a way, because all those 4 cards that helped separate Zark in the first place was to counteract, you know, Synchro Xyz, you know, standard summoning and fusion summoning, to counteract all those, so that way, we can beat him. But he has to come with a whole brand new summoning method, so that way, that won't be counteracted, you know, against anybody who would pose a threat to him again. So we get to see a lot of supporting characters that we've been following along, the great duelists that we've been following along so far, all jump in, because if he wins, he gets to utter havoc on all 4 dimensions simultaneously, because like portals open all over the place, and certain sections of cityscapes from different universes start coming into play. It looks kind of like a Smash Brothers type of thing going on, and we get like, you know, Sora, Astro Phoenix, Jack Atlas, even like people coming back like Crow, who, you know, because after like the whole situation is, you know, Zark coming back, people who were cards starting to come back, you know, to life. Crow, Crow, Jack, Gong, even like Silvio, who probably had the most, like, I mean, even though he's like a, you know, come across as like an arrogant ass, he is like a legit decent duelist, and you tend to forget that. But he had the probably like the most like, oh my god, you know, like the most like, he put off a sweet, you know, strategic move where he could, you know, utilize his like Abyss Actor cards to neutralize, you know, a couple of Zark's moves so that way he can actually do some freaking damage. And everybody was like, oh my god, is Silvio about to have to pull off a sweet ass move right now? And like he gets neutralized, but that was still like a decent move. Like, oh my god, Silvio's like, I was watching this like, you know, we clown on him, but Silvio's actually, if you can separate the whole arrogance part, he's actually a pretty decent duelist when he's like, you know, really being serious about it. Because he does have like some, you know, decent character growth, because, you know, once like BB turned Crow into a card, he, you know, it was Crow who saved him from turning a card himself. He pretty much sacrificed himself for Silvio, and Silvio just like hold on to that card to dear life, because he's like looking at it, it's like, you know, I wish you was here, Crow. It's like, you know, we need you right now. And he's like, you know, having like a serious moment. He put aside that, you know, arrogance a bit, because, you know, looking at the seriousness, it's not about him. He's seeing like the other devastation and everything like that. He's like, he wants to do something, but he, you know, in that altercation with the whole BB situation, his dual disc got disrupted. But thanks to Gong passing his dual disc over to Silvio, Silvio can step in and offer some help. Then there's like Declan and Leo step in, because everybody's stepping in. We cannot let this guy win the overall match. Everything will still keep going, and everybody just keeps stepping in, even though there's a penalty every time you step into an already technically active duel. You get, you know, typically you start with 4,000 life points. Anybody who steps in has to start with 2,000 instead. It's a penalty. Kind of, in a way, it kind of like harkens back to old Duelist Kingdom rules, where everybody's starting off with 2,000 life points. In a way, it's kind of like a good homage to that, in a way. So it's just, that's part of the coolest part of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 series, where like everybody that we've been following along comes in to step in to deal with the overarching bad guy that used to be their friend, in order to put a stop to that and try to remind them of who he used to be, so that we can stop this. And then like Leo was, you know, in terms of duelist, villain duelist, he sucks so much. He barely even pull off anything. And there was like a moment where it still gets a laugh out of me, where like Leo's like, Zark, and he's like, what? I love the voice of Zark. It's like he talks like this. You think you're gonna take me? You'll be a fool. And it's like, and just like that quick reaction just got a laugh out of it. It's probably the most realistic human response. Zark, what? It's really funny. But Leo couldn't even pull off a freaking move at all. He's one-shotted. God, even Pegasus would have pulled off something. At least lasted at least 2 or 3 rounds before he would have gotten taken out. But no, this dude got owned handily. You suck, dude. You suck so bad for a villain duelist. But then Riley comes in, who, you know, has been listening to the voice of Bray, who's like, you know, because of the whole machinations of Leo, her essence managed to recompile into some kind of energy that was whispering to Riley's head, telling him what he needs to do. So that way, or she, because I think it was really just turning like to be a girl or something. I don't know why that was like the whole thing, but it was thanks to Ray and Riley, who comes in at the very end to wrap this thing up, because Declan and Crow Declan Crow, it was actually Jack. I don't know if Jack actually dealt any kind of damage. I think it was technically Silvio, Crow, and Declan who manages to affect, you know, battle damage to this guy, because everybody else leading up to them couldn't really get past his, you know, Zark's battle strategy, where his pendulum cards was pretty much absorbing and giving him life points anytime some kind of damage is going to affect him, making him very hard to actually get his life points down to 0. But thanks to Riley, Lexi, and Ray, because Ray, who was split apart, each of those four girls, in a way, that's why each one having to be friends with the main person, except for like, Selena and Yuri, because Yuri was kind of like a sadistic bastard, but she's always like close by, having to be close by to Yuri to be in his general vicinity at the very least. So in a way, because those girls had those bracelets, in a way, those girls was pretty much like, I don't want to say bodyguards, but kind of like guardians, like, watchful guardians in a way, to keep like Zark in check. I think like it was Declan who came up with that theory, where it's like we see something like Yulia, I mean Lulu, who's watching over, who's always like the one to be the one to keep Yuya's emotions in check, or keep him like give him like a cool head or everything like that. It's like these girls always keep like these other boys in check in a way to keep their emotions from going erratic, because once that goes unstable, Zark can kind of like further infect them, or with his influence. So I think that was a cool little thing to give meaning to like the female lead protagonist, because previously many of the despite some being great duels in their own right, a lot of the female lead protagonists outside of maybe Akiza didn't really offer much in terms of the main story. They're always like a tag along. It wasn't until I say only Akiza and these other four girls in arc 5 actually service the overarching story to where they feel like they need it, and they're also good dudes on top of all that. And is only these girls that actually remained great duels all through 3 seasons, because previously from Duel Monsters all the way up to Zexal, the female lead characters, who's like the love interest to the main character, after a certain point they start to become like sucky duelists for some doggone reason. They become so lame. Like you see that especially with like how many times Lakiza kept losing after season 1, how many times Mai Valentine kept losing when she's supposed to be some kind of champion in her own right. We barely see her win a lot of her duels. Every time she's on screen, she always losing, and it's kind of like weird when she's supposed to be some kind of ace duelist. It's always like a thing. And like aside from maybe Alexis, but even Alexis, became like lost a little bit of her edge after season 1 of GX. So it's kind of like always been a thing. It wasn't until here where we had consistent female duelists all throughout. It's only this one. It's kind of like mind-blowing that somebody probably got it right. Some writer finally got it right. But anyway, like Akiza with the 5 signers, she served a purpose because she was like the helps things along, so she needs to be the great duelist. And here all 4 girls serve the overarching purpose of the story. So it's like, okay, you finally got some girls consistent here. So like I said, like all these duels like against this main bad guy, that is probably the most epic thing I ever seen in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. That is incredible. Everybody gets their moment to shine all throughout, that we've been following along all throughout here. It's incredible. It's probably one of the best part of the entire series. Then we get like the wrap up, where it's always like a thing with the main protagonist, where well, here's the thing, all the boys' essence are merged into I think same thing with like maybe Zuzu too, maybe, I don't know, but all those boys' essence are within Yuya now. And for some reason, because I think there was like a missing, I doubt it was an actual missing episode, but it feels like there's some kind of episode or two that's missing where we get like a turn from bad guy to good guy with Yuri. Because you see, like, when Yuri's like within like the spirit of Yuya with everybody else, he's a little bit more like a team player with Yuya, Yuto, and Yugo. Whereas, like, okay, where is this like that complete turn come from? Because the last time we saw when he dueled Yuya and he lost, he was like evil to the bitter end. Like, even when like he knows he's about to lose, I lose. It's like evil to the end. And like, your knight has won, your knight has won. And it's like, where is this like complete like team player attitude come from all of a sudden? It would have been played so much better when he dueled against Yuya's father, and his duel tainting kind of like, you know, got him at least pondering his methods, that, you know, maybe he's went about this whole entire thing all wrong, his mindset, and start questioning things. That way it'll probably sit a little bit better. Oh, speaking of duel tainting, like, kudos to the writers and animators and everybody involved in this, because every time I see Yuya legit duel tainting, even his dad legit duel tainting, I get a smile on my face. And that's, you know, the whole purpose of this character is got his duel tainting supposed to bring a smile to your face. And this whole carnival circus little thing they do, it's always like, okay, this is like, I'm having fun. And that's the whole purpose of the character, is when he wants to duel so he can bring smiles to the audience's faces. And it legit worked, because I'm having so much fun when he's like doing this whole showmanship and everything like that. Ladies and gentlemen, duelists of all ages, it's time for me to set the pendulum scale with skill 1 Stargaze magician and skill 8 time gazing magician. Now it's time to set the pendulum scale. It's time to swing into action. You're like, hop to it, hippo. And it's like the whole thing is just so much fun to look at. And it's like, I'm having a good time. And like, kudos to the people involved in this, because like, every time that is coming about, I'm having a good time with it. I'm just like, I forget all the whole seriousness of what's going on in overarching, and like, for this moment of, it's kind of like going to the movies, despite whatever kind of crap you're dealing with the news or whatever's going on halfway around the world. It's just when you're watching, like, going to the theater for 2 hours, you can just shut everything else out and just focus on something that's just meant to entertain you and make you forget for at least a couple of hours for your troubles. And that is the purpose of things like that. That's why, like, me and a lot of people are gonna turn off with, like, I know I hate to say the word, but like, wokeness or anything like that, because it's like, you're kind of like taking what's going on in the real world and you're inserting it, and it's like, nobody wants to think about that when you're trying to watch a certain film or play a certain game. You kind of want, like, okay, at least when you're trying to reflect the real world, you should be at least vague about it, where it's not hyper specific. And it's like, oh, and that's where people roll their eyes half the time. It's not like they hate to see like a person of an LGBTQ character involved in a story, but if you're trying to, people can tell when you're forcing it, and it's like, and you're trying to make some kind of statement. Nobody wants to be preached to. That's the thing. And it's like, you want to be able to be entertained by something without having to see what you're trying to escape from in the thing that that's meant to entertain you and let you turn your brain off for a while, and just put some level of joy into your life, kind of thing, So kudos to the writers and the animators who make these dual tainting stuff really good. What else I gotta say about this? Because aside from I mentioned all the good stuff, but it's just like, I just don't agree with the way like it ended, because Yuya, you know, duel against Jack and then duel against Declan, because the main character always had this kind of existential crisis towards the end of the series. You see that happen with all the other ones, with Yuma and Astro. You see that with Yugi and Yama Yugi at the end of the series. I don't think we got that with Yusei. I think he didn't have some kind of existential crisis, but you see that with like Jaden when it's duel against Yugi at the end of GX, where it's like they gone, because outside of maybe Yusei, well, I don't know, Yusei, you know, because dueling, you know, when it get into like this whole overarching kind of narrative, it gets very world ending and fight for survival type of situation for so long. It's hard to turn that off once all the dust is settled. And now like Yuya is going through the same thing, where it's like you gotta get that feeling back, like the love for dual tainting again, because he's afraid of summoning all the 4 dragons, or at least 3 out of the 4 dragons onto the field, because he's worried that Zark might reemerge if we get all 4 dragons on the field together again, and he does not want that to happen and cause utter catastrophe all over again, now that he knows who he used to be. And thanks to Declan and Jack, in that asshole way possible, got through to Yuya, to his love for the game and his love for entertaining, and you gotta, you know, not fear this unknown, and require the love for the game, which he does. But I just don't agree with like how things ended. It's like, if things, you know, because all these 4 dimensions shouldn't be separated. It's one singular dimension, or at least one singular timeline or some kind of thing, however you want to quantify it. And people are supposed to be, you know, merged into one person. Like, you know, Ray and Zark should be one person. They're good again, and all things peaceful and required. And Zark should be like a, you know, very apologetic. I won't ever, you know, I remember myself as Yuto, Yuya, Yuto, Yugo, and Yuri. I remember all the life I lived separately. Now I'm back together again. Like, I'm not going to let that happen again. And thanks to Yuya commenting on what I was thinking about, where it's like, you know, Zark wasn't, you know, what happened to Zark wasn't entirely his fault. He, like me, wanted to entertain the crowd. It's just the crowd got so riled up and bloodthirsty about, you know, how to it forced him to, you know, go down the negative route of entertaining the crowd, where it's like giving them exactly what they want. And dual-taining is supposed to make people smile, not want them to like cause more havoc just for the thrill of the entertainment. But yeah, you know, Zark come back into one and super apologetic, want to start fresh, apologize to Leo and everything like that. And just like, I don't know, like I said before, it's like everything starts fresh, everything's reemerged. You know, Jack and Crow's life is back on track again, where it used to probably be. Well, if you're going back to the previous online kind of situation, Jack and Crow, either they're older or they have long since passed, because we're further along into the future, where it's like you know, Zark, you know, looks up, you know, in history and see like Jack and Crow and his like friends with like Akiza and Yusei and all of them, like the, you know, 5D's team has, you know, lived their lives and everything like that. And you see like another article about like Kite running, and his little brother running their father's company, and taking a picture with like grown up Yuma and all their supporting characters. Everybody lived out their lives, uh, and so they lived happy lives where they meant to be, and all the hurt and pain and catastrophe that went on never even occurred. So everybody got to start fresh, but now they recall everything. That's how I would have wanted to play out instead of just what we got. I'm not personally not too thrilled about that, but honestly, like I still have issues with certain things with season 1, especially, and parts of season 2. But I think like things got a little bit more together with season 3. But those are my overall thoughts with the entire series. It is fine, but not exactly my favorite. I do say maybe it's probably slightly better than Zexal, because Zexal was, a lot of it was kind of clownish crap. Aside from Shark, Kite, I never liked Yuma like that. It's like, I know he's a kid, but it seems like I already mentioned my thoughts about like Yuma's character from my reviews for season 1 through 3 of Zexal, so you can check that out on my YouTube channel. But here with Yuya, I definitely like him better than Yuma. But I think Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei is still like the best main characters in the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, in my opinion. They have like a much better arc, and their stories all had like their narrative all the way makes sense. It seems like a jumble mess in certain cases here. But anyway, now I'm gonna be going into Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, which will be the first time I actually watched the show. They only made one season from what I can tell, but I wanted to get through all of because when I started my review, my channel, we're doing all these reviews of comics, TV shows, and movies, and do my video game walkthroughs. I wanted to start from the beginning in a linear fashion until we get to this endpoint. We're finally here, where now I'm going to be pretty soon binging, not right away. I gotta get through like a comic book review for later on this week to review. It's not going to probably take too long, but I'll be getting right into Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, give my thoughts on that, and finally pretty much wrap up the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Review series all together at once. And then possibly get my overall thoughts on the entire franchise all together, maybe. If I remember it, I'll do it. But probably doing my Vrains review. But like I said, it's gonna be the first time I'm watching it, so it'll be very interesting to see, because I've been holding off until then. Just like with my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I did not. I knew past tense. I knew the Jolene Joestar arc was on Netflix for me to see, but I wanted to wait until I got through all the other JoJo stuff first, in order, until I got there, so I didn't want to be spoiled or anything like that. I want to start fresh. So this is how I went with Vrains too. So look forward to that. And then I'm juggling which there's 2 shows I really want to get into. I'm debating which one to tackle first. One already did like a first season on, it was an anime, but I also feel the need to get into this other show. There's one HBO Max, but I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards the first one, but we'll see. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. I want to start playing a little bit of Tekken 8 and learning some Hwoarang, some of his moves. Get back in some Tekken 8, and watching a lot of his characters from Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. I really want to like, because I made some updates with my Galaxy Eyes deck, including some, I didn't even realize on Master Duel there's some Zypher cards that I did not include in my deck. I remember a viewer, while I was doing like a playthrough of Master Duel when I was trying out Kite's deck, made a comment about like my stuff wasn't complete. I'm pretty sure that person was referencing probably the Cypher cards, because I did have the Cypher Galaxy Eyes XC's cards, but I didn't include like the standard cards, like, you know, the Cypher 4-star cards. But I made some updates with that, as well as Jack Atlas stuff. I didn't get the Twin Shield or Twin Sword Marauder cards, unfortunately, because I really wanted those two ones. But I made some decent substitutes, but I should include some stuff that helps me summon my Red Dragon Archfiend cards, because I got a lot of tuners, but I need some like standard cards to help with the summoning, make the summoning a little bit easier. But I'll probably maybe wait until the day after tomorrow, since I'll have more time to get into all that and play an hour or so. But anyway, that is it. Leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Follow me in the links in the description below. And I will see you guys soon. Have a great night. Sorry this was late, but I was going through a lot of the videos, so I can make sure I can get what I need done. As soon as I'm done, I wanted to make the video right away, despite how late it got. But anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Take care. And don't forget to swing into action.